I've seen many terrible things during my watch, but none more horrifying than a wasted second-round draft pick. That's why I always use my Fantasy Footballer's Ultimate Draft Kit to guide me through the cold. Though my friends and family league keeps getting smaller and smaller, my fantasy team's just getting stronger and stronger. Join me at www.ultimatedraftkick.com and prepare yourself to fight the good fight. Winter is coming, but so is my #FootClan title. I guess I do know something after all.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome into the show. I can tell you without a question. What?
You have gone full Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the ship. You have gone wide arms on the table. You are gripped and ripped for something.
Engaged.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm in charge. I'm feeling
I heard
ready
you
to
were going
go.
to tell us something.
I mean, there's a power move happening right now.
Well, what I was going to say is that in Arizona, winter is not coming.
Oh,
That is for sure. That seemed like the appropriate intro to the show in light of the
get hyped.
in light of the recent trailer to Game of Thrones season 7. Mike, you are a big trailer fan, so I know you were hyped. And you know, how many times have you seen it?
What's funny is I don't mind trailers, but for some reason, just a show like Game of Thrones,
You don't want to see it.
I don't want to see it. I don't need to see it. I understand HBO; they got to make it, but I don't need to see it
Because you already know.
because there's nothing that in that trailer that will say you got to convince me more to watch this
now
show.
I'm gonna watch
Yeah.
it.
But
I was
they
on the
need
fence.
that buzz because there are people out there,
Yeah, certainly there
like
are.
Brooks, who haven't seen it. So
This is ridiculous, Brooks.
we got him to go through season 1.
Working on it.
I think he feels like that now will placate us for a period of time. Welcome to the show, Thursday, May 25th. Back again. Great episode coming your way. We've got an ADP price check. So what are we doing today? We are going – well, Mike is running the ship today.
Yes.
So let the people know what we're doing for the main feature on today's show.
So we're getting in that time. Drafts are happening. I should say mock drafts are happening. Dynasties happening. The ADP, the average draft position, is starting to take shape. And yes, absolutely, there will be tremendous movement over the offseason through training camp, preseason, injuries, and things will shake around. But a lot of guys are, you know, when you're shaking the box for just that tiny bit of extra crumbs, you're getting things into place. And that's what's happening for a lot of these guys. So it's good to right now start taking a look. That's why we always recommend, mock draft right now. The more knowledge you have going into drafts in August, the better off you are.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because there's a number of players that Mike's going to be bringing up, having Jason and I basically try to guess where their ADP is, and then we're going to riff about those players, talk about them.
And guys who are going around that similar area.
Yeah, which is great. And, that's our sleepers and our breakouts and our busts and our values, all of the pieces inside the Ultimate Draft Kit. A lot of that is based around the average draft position of players, around are you getting a steal on this guy later in the can you get a quarterback in the 12th round that can provide you potential top 10 performances? So very much looking forward to that. Let me jump into the quick question before I bring up a few other bits of news. But the quick question from Mark in Cincinnati.
Hey, Mark.
He said, hey, guys, I love the show. One of the reasons I think the show is great is because you guys spend a lot of time watching game film. Where do you guys go to watch game film of teams or players, and how do you go about your evaluation?
I can tell you one of the best places to watch game film is the NFL Game Pass. NFL.com has this incredible tool. It's not that expensive. For what you get, it's really unbelievable. You can watch every single game right after, after it's done. You can watch them in shortened, condensed 30-minute versions. You can watch the all-22, the coaches film, so you could see routes run and things like that. But a lot of people don't know when you have Game Pass, if you want to go and look at a specific player, you can actually search in there for a player, and it will bring up all of their plays You can watch them back to back to back to back, just every play that player was involved with. You can specify certain weeks. So it's just a great tool.
I'll add to that. We've brought this up before. Watching preseason football and preseason tape, it's not the be-all, end-all, but a lot of the times when you identify players that you think you're going to like for the coming year based on statistical trends or what you think you've seen in years past, and you take that knowledge and those selections in your brain and you watch a little preseason football, you can maybe let that be the differentiator. I remember a couple of years ago seeing Julius Thomas look like a different player than anybody had ever known him to be. Most people didn't know who he was. Preseason showed you who he was. Chris Johnson was an example of that years ago as well. So it can be it's a piece of the puzzle, right?
And usage. I mean, I had last offseason, a guy who I was pushing hard was Torrey Smith. I liked his opportunity as kind of the number one with Chip Kelly in San Francisco. And he was a sleeper.
You were excited
I was
about
very
the
excited
potential.
Exactly. And then preseason came, and no targets were going to Torrey Smith. That continued. And so it was after that I saw the usage. I had to completely pull back on Torrey.
Yeah. The opposite can happen too, though. I know for me last year coming in, like most people, really high on what could be for Allen Robinson, and then in preseason, man, they were connecting left and right, and it was like, oh, it's gonna happen. Spoiler alert, it didn't happen.
You can follow the show on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Big news: the UDK, the Ultimate Draft Kit, 1 week away, guys. 1 week away from being released. It was hard to drag Jason away from the computer just to do the show. We've all been knee-deep in the UDK. Very, very excited about what we've got there. And I'll say this. If you bought it last year and you were happy, but one of the complaints you had was, boy, maybe I couldn't use it on my phone as well as I would have liked. That's one of the big focuses we've made for ourselves this offseason is making the UDK mobile-friendly so you can bring that with you, as well as we completely revamped and redid all of our cheat sheets. They are 1,000 times better than they were last year. They're very, very useful, something you can bring with you to your draft. And there's just so much in there.
Yeah,
I'm telling
I'll throw
you.
one other thing just because it's really on my mind. The reception perception that's going to be in there, I'm just letting you know.
From Matt Harmon.
The exclusive reception perception.
And I'll throw this. He's never done what we're offering here with the top 50 wide receivers of our rankings. He's never offered this before, so this is a first time.
Yeah, and I just want to let people know what they're going to get.
Sure, go ahead. Did I ruin it?
A lot of stuff. I mean, so much data.
You're melting. Brooks is hot swapping hard drives. That's how much data is coming in from Matt Harmon right now.
I need floaties right now. I need to wear a puddle jumper because I am drowning in all of this awesome data.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. I'm excited.
I thought it was your sweat.
And you know what's cool? It's not like we're going to the presses with this thing and then we're shipping it. We're shipping it, and then we're going to keep adding to it because that's what we do every offseason. So it's exciting. UltimateDraftKit.com. You can check that out. Let us know what you think. We also have a live stream on JoinTheFoot.com today at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's 3 p.m. Pacific. The live stream for everybody over there. And today after the show, very special show after the show on YouTube, we are going to talk about our beginnings. We're going to talk about how we got our start. This is a question we get a lot of the time. How did you guys get going on the podcast? We're going to spend a few minutes on the show after the show on YouTube and just see if we can remember how we got our start. So let's talk some fantasy football news.
News and notes from around the league.
Good news, guys.
Yes.
Woo-hoo! Celebrations are back.
This is not really fantasy relevant, but this is NFL relevant. This is fandom relevant.
This is great news.
This is fantastic news.
Who would have thought this would happen?
Not me. I can't remember who was bringing up the alert and slow reading it for dramatic effect, but it was, the NFL with celebrations. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's going to get even worse.
No,
they're going to have a rule that says you have to give the ball to the ref, and that's all you can do.
That's called the Larry Fitzgerald. Group celebrations are back. Football as a prop is back. Going to the ground in celebration is back. And players are excited about this. I saw Antonio Brown talk about, hey, guess what? He can finally go and celebrate with his offensive lineman that made a play those guys don't get to score all the time, but then they were banned from going and celebrating,
Right.
which is crazy. This is just not – it's not human nature to say play the game with all the passion in the world and be an entertaining player on the TV screen, but also constrain all of that.
You know what? I dare say it's un-American
Yeah.
to hold people back from celebrating their success.
You're right. Not fantasy relevant whatsoever, but we had to.
But it's great.
Look, that came with the news that they were going to shorten the overtime period and that they were going to add an extra IR to return spot. But nobody expected this. I didn't.
That's great. That's actually very fantasy relevant as well.
Yeah, there is another IR to return spot. Let's talk about Rob Gronkowski. Now, Mike, you wanted me to put this in the news. His contract has been restructured. It can go anywhere from, I believe, $6 million, $5.75, up to $10.75 this year. What are the fantasy implications of that?
It's fantastic because it is completely incentive-based. The Patriots are saying to Rob Gronkowski, yes, you are extremely valuable. We want you on the team. But Gronk, we need you to play. We need you to do everything you can that keeps your body healthy. Now, whether that's going to change off-field Gronk, I do not know. But he can make or lose a lot of money if he doesn't get on the field and perform with yards, receptions, and touchdowns.
The Patriots signed Andrew Hawkins yesterday to a one-year deal.
Freaking sneaky Patriots, man.
There was a time when I would have cared about this, and it was about 3 years ago with Andrew Hawkins. In my opinion, there's no guarantee he makes the roster over a Danny Amendola or something. There's only so many players you can have, right, Mike?
Oh, no, I completely agree, but it's just
Yeah.
if they want to go that route and they say, okay, well, Amendola, you're out. Now we have Hawkins as our backup slot.
Who's
And he
been
would be
just
great.
fine before, yeah. The Cowboys holding Ezekiel Elliott out of OTAs. He suffered a head injury in a minor car accident on Sunday. The impression I'm getting from the news, unconfirmed, is he may have suffered a concussion from the minor car accident, which is a reason to keep him out. It was a head injury of some sort. Do you guys have any concern about this? Just news?
No, Jason Garrett expects him back on Tuesday.
You don't expect Darren McFadden to steal a job during this time?
No. No. I think it's one of those things where when it's such a big name and it's such slow news, it's, hey, guys, did you hear that thing that happened to Ezekiel Elliott? And that's the news.
All right, Matt Jones will not be at OTAs. He was a healthy scratch most of last year. Didn't appear that he was going to be a part of the Redskins' plans. I would expect Matt Jones to be cut.
Yeah, and
he could land somewhere.
It's possible, and then he'll land the football on the ground again because he can't stop fumbling. I'm not letting you skip over this Mike Williams news. He's not participating in OTAs. He got hurt the very first day, his back, which you're thinking, okay, it's OTAs, but this is still crucial time for a rookie. I mean, he has no chemistry with Phillip Rivers. He has no real active knowledge, no physical reps in the offense yet. And we do disagree on this in the office. I still like Tyrell Williams, who is essentially free in drafts because I think that Mike Williams is more of replacing Travis Benjamin and his role in the offense. I think that Tyrell.
I think we all agree with.
I think we agree with the $14.04 draft price of Tyrell Williams. Why not, until things become more clear, why not pick him up? Okay. Why not have him? But, yes, you're right. If all things come the way that we think they will, we disagree on what that will be.
And I will just throw this out. Over the last few years, when you've seen kind of rookie wide receivers injured early in mini camps,
not good.
It has not been good for them.
Kevin White, anybody? Kevin White?
Doxson, anybody?
Yeah.
Josh Doxson.
Yeah.
By the way, Corey Coleman got banged up yesterday. If you heard that report, it seems like he's going to be fine.
Yep.
So,
No
but
worries.
a little bit. That was the first off-season little blurb that I went, like it reminded me of what will happen. I mean, inevitably, because Kenny Britt would have gotten way more airtime than he deserves for the next few months if something serious happened to Corey Coleman. All right, Martavis Bryant added 10 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, and this is simply the off season. It's the time that we talk about players' weight. But I love hearing a wide receiver has added weight, and I also love hearing a running back has cut weight. So that's just how I view when these blurbs come out. So it's just more Martavis love from this guy.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 pounds of muscle thing is always funny to me. It's like, yeah, he put on 10 pounds. Oh, it's all muscle. It's just
well, I mean, to be fair, we've seen pictures of the man without his shirt on.
Yeah.
He put on muscle.
All right. Any other news you guys want to get into?
It's
or can
not
we...
like when I'm like, hey, Jay, I put on 10 pounds. We look very different.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll need to poll the audience on that one, Mike. Maybe some Instagram.
Maybe not.
All right. Let's get into the main event.
You better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Indeed. As we perform our early off-season ADP price check, just a reminder, these ADPs have been pulled from Fantasy Football Calculator, and I went with PPR because it's the new standard.
I see what you did there.
Tricky.
ESPN has changed it.
Very nice. First guy. Oh, you got something?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm
First
along
guy
for the ride.
on the list for this game, Derrick Henry. He is the backup running back for the Tennessee Titans. DeMarco Murray had a very monstrous season. He was a strong running back, one of the best who was not in that top 3 tier. Murray could be that again, but Derrick Henry, his backup, who some would consider a very high-level handcuff, where do you think he's going in PPR drafts?
Well, I'm not 100% sure in PPR, but I know in standard he's going in the 6th round, and I know this because it is one of the most painful things for me. He is. I want him. I want him bad on my team. I really love Derrick Henry, but I cannot.
You don't want to pay the 6th round.
I know. I just can't justify. It's like I
That's
think there's
the worst
a good
when you
chance.
have a guy you love and he's cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he breaks out this year, and if he does, he's going to be worth it. So you say, oh, okay. But to draft a guy in the 6th when you're still getting your starting running backs and wide receivers who is a backup is tough.
I'm going to guess in PPR he's at the top of the 7th round.
Okay, Jay, do you want it? So top of the 7th. Let's get a more exact price. And also, Brooks,
Do you want me to give you an exact number or something? Like
yeah, give me an
703.
exact number. Okay, 703.
I'll go 6'11".
6'11" on the dot. Excellent work there by Jason. That puts him.
Go ahead. No.
That puts him at the running back 28.
Okay. I mean, if you want to buy into the best, Mike, you brought up Tevin Coleman and having viable
it's a run first
production, run first team. Look, I don't. We disagree more than maybe anything on Derrick Henry this year. Sure, if Murray is injured, Derrick Henry's a monster. But if he's not, they love DeMarco Murray. One of the things that I saw so evident last year is despite early season yard per carry and production in the passing game from Derrick Henry on paper and on film, it was goal line, 2-minute situations, important situations. Murray did everything asked of him last year. I don't read into any of, I know some of the late season numbers were a little bit different, but
yes.
So there was a foot injury for DeMarco Murray. The way this team is built is not to lean on a young guy. It's to lean on the horse, and the horse is DeMarco Murray. He did nothing to make me think he's going to dissipate. I have him extremely high in my rankings, and so I'm just very confident in him. I wouldn't be spending that 7-0 as a handcuff, though,
right.
for Murray. Maybe I'd probably spend the 7th round pick or a 6'11", but otherwise I'm probably staying away.
That's what I was going to say. From week 11 on, he had 13 red zone carries, and that includes 7 10 zone carries, of those highly lucrative goal line carries, which I think was attributed to Murray going through his foot problem. But you came to the next question, which is, are you going to pay a 7th round price for a handcuff to just sit on your bench and as insurance, a 7th round pick?
It reminds me, a lot of Tevin Coleman last year, where he's a guy that is.
He was much later though.
Well, okay, then Tevin Coleman this year.
Okay,
where you've got a guy who I think could be a startable player on in a flex or in a pinch. You're not going to be completely getting a backup who's getting 5 carries and nothing else. I mean, from week 11 on, you saw their usage change drastically with Derrick Henry. 4 of his 5 touchdowns came in those last weeks. That was after their bye. So, I mean, there are plenty of reasons to believe that it's just a matter of, do you think it's because of DeMarco Murray's foot and that's why they chose to do that? Or do you think it's because they've got this great back and he was proving himself and they chose to do it there?
Murray is very aging.
But obviously, if DeMarco goes down, then Derrick Henry is an absolute beast. I think he can do it all, and he would be, capable of being a top 5 back. But no, I'm not willing in the 6th round to take him. He's not going to be on my roster.
Here's a couple guys going right around Derrick Henry in PPR drafts. Latavius Murray and Amir Abdullah are going slightly in front of him. And behind Derrick Henry, you got Theo Riddick, Joe Mixon, who I fully expect Joe Mixon to be much higher come draft season, and LeGarrette Blount. I would think that LeGarrette Blount will be around this area. Would you go?
No, I would not go Henry over any of them.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't.
I know there was a name or two that I would go Henry over, but not over most of those, because in the 6th, I still need starters.
Right.
And the other guys on that list are guys who I expect to score more, barring a change.
You know who Derrick Henry's draft position reminds me of? Hunter Henry. The Henrys. The players are going, Henry this offseason, because both of them are players with both have high ceiling, and that's why people are excited about them. Both were rookies last year.
Both showed they could do.
Both showed that they could do it, but both had very limited workloads. 110 carries for Henry, and then the touchdowns were there for Hunter Henry, but not the reception totals. So I understand why the excitement's there, and hey, there's a chance for it, but I think we both agree that we'd rather grab a starter there.
Before I move to my next question, I have a quick question from our candy expert, O. Henry. Old person candy?
Oh, totally an old person candy.
Okay, I'm just confirming.
And just to make sure this is clear, that doesn't make it bad. I mean, I love some old person candy. I love it. But I mean, it's classic. But
you do not discriminate.
No, I don't. I love all candy
equally.
I'm the fat guy of the three of us. So give me any of it. But O. Henry is definitely an
old Henry.
Yeah,
the people need to know these things. Moving on. You talked about him already, but Tevin Coleman.
Coleman.
In a PPR draft, where is Tevin Coleman going? The backup to Atlanta. Well, maybe it's not the backup. Depends on how you view him.
What's funny is I just saw Mike Clay's projection on the entirety of the Atlanta offense, and he had Devonta Freeman at about, it had to have been between 12 and 14 touchdowns on the year. And I'm such a big Devonta Freeman fan. That doesn't mean that Tevin Coleman's not going to have very, very good games. I'm gonna predict that Tevin Coleman. It's funny because some of these guys I've looked at. I don't think I've really looked at him. I'm gonna say in a PPR league he might be going in the early 6th.
Oh, see, I was gonna go 4th, so I'll go late 4th. Give me a 4-11.
I feel like Jason may be cheating.
I am 100% not cheating.
Give me 5-11.
4-10.
All right.
4-10, the running back 18. And as I was going back through Tevin Coleman's fantasy game logs, just how did he finish on the week? You forget how great he was. 8 of 13 games, he was a running back 2 or better, and that includes an overall running back 2, running back 7, running back 8, running back 3 on the week. I mean, he had some absolutely dominant performances. They had that week, if you recall, against the Saints, where Freeman was 1, Tevin Coleman was 2. So they have that ability in Atlanta.
To add to Jason, not that I want to do this ever, but to add to his argument, if you want an argument for for Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry last year, he only had 13 receptions on the season. But he had about the same amount of carries last year that Tevin Coleman had. Coleman had 118 last year. Derrick Henry was 110. The difference was receptions, right?
And
the efficiency in touchdowns. But when you talk about I could easily concede a 15% usage increase to Derrick Henry. 15, 20%. I could concede that happily.
Right.
But Tevin Coleman's numbers and efficiency at least show you that having limited work you can produce in fantasy. It scares the heck out of me to start Tevin Coleman.
Yeah. When he was bad for fantasy, he was
I mean, look at these games.
4 or worse.
4 catches for 132 yards. 49-yarder and a touchdown and 6 carries. So 10 touches on the game. Dominated that year. Scared the heck out of me.
Here's guys going around Tevin Coleman.
Sing it to us.
Right in front of him, you have the Crow and C.J. Anderson. And then right behind him, you have Eddie Lacy and Mark Ingram, who I think I just kind of gave you a little tip-off. We're going to talk about Mark Ingram a little bit later. So
that's tough.
There you go. There's a hint for the game.
I wouldn't touch Coleman over the Crow. I would take the Crow every day.
The Crow is going in front of him. But I said Lacy is going behind him.
I'd take Coleman.
I think that's a great debate between Lacy and Coleman. This is, again, because of where I'm at in the draft, I would go with Lacy because if I had to pick one of those two.
Yeah,
even in a PPR league?
That's the game we're playing.
Even in a PPR league?
Yes, even in a PPR league, I would. And the reason why, again, I wouldn't take either of those guys there. There are other running backs I prefer. But if I had to use my fourth player and say, which guy am I going to start every week this season, I'd rather have the starting running back for a good offense that's known to run. I think Eddie Lacy is being slept on a little bit by people who, have called him Fat Eddie for a while, and then he got injured last year. But he still looked good. I don't think he's really lost much. So I would lean that direction. It's very, very similar to the discussions with Derrick Henry. But the exception here is that I think there's a regression coming for Atlanta. I don't think Matt Ryan,
Kyle Shanahan leaving town,
or just the fact that they're coming in off of a Super Bowl loss. We've seen that year after year after year after year after year. Teams coming off of a Super Bowl loss, it's common for them to regress, and they were astronomically high in all their touchdown numbers. So I think if a regression comes, it's going to hit Tevin Coleman, and so him being up in the fourth, that's way too high for me.
All right, we're going to move on to a combo package of suspended running backs. We have Kenneth Dixon and Doug Martin. Kenneth Dixon and Doug Martin. Now, Dixon is suspended for 4. Doug Martin only has 3 games left on his 4-game suspension. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been quite supportive of Doug Martin. The Ravens haven't been as vocal for Dixon. However, they did not draft anyone to add to that Ravens backfield. They did add Danny Woodhead in the offseason. But Kenneth Dixon and Doug Martin, where do you think they're going in drafts?
I'm going to guess Doug Martin is going at 805, and I'm going to guess Kenneth Dixon's going at 1005.
I think Kenneth Dixon is – last I saw, I think he was going too high, so I'm going to say he's in the 8th, and then I just can't imagine Doug Martin going behind him, so I'll go Doug Martin 7 middle. I'll go 7-6 and 8-6.
Well, you're both very close on Kenneth Dixon. He's 904, the running back 42. However, Doug Martin in these mock drafts is still hanging out in the 5th round. People are buying in. 506, running back 21. They see those 2 incredible years from him.
Who are the people around Doug Martin right now? Because that is so important for
context.
What we're looking at.
To
be honest, the 5th round makes me say it doesn't even matter who's going around him. I love Doug Martin this year, but I don't think I could take him there unless I am somehow drafting a third running back.
Just in front of him, the aforementioned Eddie Lacy, Mark Ingram. Then you have right behind him Christian McCaffrey, Adrian Peterson, and if you go a little bit further into the 6th for running backs, Bilal Powell and Ty Montgomery.
I mean, I think the only person of that entire list that I would consider drafting Martin ahead of would be the last 2 you
Montgomery
said. And maybe Powell.
Maybe
Powell. And that would be team-specific for me because it would be looking at my roster and can I sustain these 3 weeks and is it worth it for me to do so? Now, if I had drafted and I have a plan to go get Jaquiz Rodgers late because nobody's going to touch him and I don't care, and that can have that combination, maybe I think about it. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot of uncertainty for my roster.
And here's what you can do. Speaking of that plan, you can do that exact same plan with the Baltimore Ravens, except wait even later because Terrence West is currently going at 1206.
Is that behind Jaquiz?
I can look for a quiz, but I'm saying
interesting.
That's behind Dixon. The starter for Baltimore is going 3 rounds after a guy who will not play for 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's because people have watched Terrence West before.
And that's
and
fine.
They get the old Terrence West.
Right, and Terrence West was just fine for
He's
fantasy
a running back
purposes.
2 last year.
Oh,
and
of course.
He's coming into a situation where he is.
He was a preseason example. We looked at him, and he did well in the preseason,
different.
and we said, whoa. He looks quick. Mark Ingram was that a couple years ago. So, yeah.
Jaquiz in the back of the 13th.
It's funny. Both of those guys, Terrence West and Jaquiz, are 2 guys I expect to be on a lot of my fantasy rosters, because when you get late into those double-digit rounds, if I can go ahead and pick up a guy who's starting, the year, who I think both guys can get it done and have gotten it done for fantasy even last year, I will happily have them on my roster.
One of my biggest regrets the last couple of seasons in drafts was not drafting D'Angelo Williams when there were opportunities to start him at the top of – it's almost like these guys get ignored. I mean, because they have a shelf life. But if you draft right around them, they could – Terrence West isn't going to carry your team like D'Angelo did. But
Right.
I just regretted not spending on guys that maybe would expire, so to speak.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to move over to the wide receiver position here. One of my personal favorites from last year. He was an absolute touchdown machine. Do you have my little? Oh yeah, Moncrief. Jason,
Yo,
where were you on the Moncrief?
I was distracted.
All right, you're cheating, aren't you?
I'm not cheating.
All right,
just
Don-
He
because-
was counting on his hand the amount of total receptions Moncrief had last year. 1, 2, 3.
So Donte Moncrief, where is he going? We know that he was an absolute touchdown magnet last year for Andrew Luck when he got to play, but he had the I believe it was the broken scapula problem that he had to deal with. So where is Donte Moncrief going? Has he fallen completely out of favor with drafters?
Depending on your answer, or the true answer, I'll guess on Moncrief. But depending on your answer, he needs to climb into our sleepers or values. I think I did the math for fun last week on Moncrief. And
What, his touchdown base?
if he had had the receptions of Julio Jones, he would have had 35 touchdowns. I'm going to say Donte Moncrief is going. Oh, Jason, you guess first this time. I'm
Sure.
always guessing after you.
Hey, I'm
Before you.
I'm happy
Jason
to,
knows how to play the game.
I'm gonna go top of the 8th. I'm gonna go 802.
All right.
That stinks. I was going to go 805.
Ooh, Price is
I'm gonna
right.
go. I'm going to go 807.
You went the wrong way because
Dang it.
he's still in the beginning of the 6th round,
Whoa.
604, wide receiver 30. It is PPR, so wide receivers move up a little bit. But the thing about Moncrief, while we can laugh about the reception totals, when he played a full game, he was basically a wide receiver 2 on that very limited work. Now, I looked at it. He was his efficiency was inhuman. I believe he had 7 10-zone targets for 7 touchdowns, right around
Probably
there.
why his yards per catch were so low compared to previous years.
Yes, and I was going to say he was 11.5 2 years ago, and he dropped to 10.2. And we know from his rookie season and his just overall athletic profile that he can take it to the house, but they're using him in a different way and letting Hilton be the deep threat. But are you willing to give Moncrief another chance? Are you out? Where are you at with Moncrief?
Look, I love Andrew Luck, and Moncrief slots in as his number 2 receiver. So I'm not out on Moncrief at all.
What about for that six?
You got to
round
give me
price?
some names around there.
Okay, I will pull them up. So
So that determines it all.
in the 6th round, going right around him. So right in front of him, you got at 5'10", Larry Fitz, followed by Kelvin Benjamin. Then the wide receivers going right after Moncrief will be Emmanuel Sanders, Jamison Crowder, and Stephon Diggs.
That's tough. In a PPR, in a standard league, I like Moncrief a lot. But in a PPR, hearing Sanders' name, Crowder's name, Fitzgerald, all those guys are going ahead of Moncrief for me. Not worth the risk.
Diggs?
Yeah,
Diggs, I'll take ahead of Moncrief too.
Okay.
In a PPR.
I'm pretty much the same way there. I don't feel like I'm out on Moncrief at all. The upside is certainly available for him.
His upside is 1 touchdown per reception.
Well, yes, that's pretty good. So I and if you take him in the 6th, it's not a guarantee that it's going to be a bad pick. But in a PPR, you have to look for volume, and he has not been the volume guy like some of those other names.
I believe he was right around that 4th last year. So you're getting at least a slight discount from the disappointing season.
Yeah, that's called the insurance or the injury discount.
Yeah, but not
I guess
everyone,
I was just hoping
not
that
everyone plummets.
Yeah, I mean, my guess of what I say, the 802.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was hoping that people would be off of him enough, because I think probably late 7th is where I would see him fitting in for where I would draft.
Yeah, and it hasn't had a year over 64 receptions. 2 years with only 30. Obviously, the rookie year didn't get used that much. So, a lot of upside. And he's a double-digit touchdown threat. Absolutely. And we talk about how many weapons Aaron Rodgers sustains in the offense in Green Bay. The same logic applies to, how many touchdowns is Andrew Luck going to throw?
I'd say low to mid-30s.
Low to mid-30s.
Yeah.
How many has Hilton had as a career high?
Hilton will get 7 or 8 of those.
Yeah, he always had 6 or 7, 8 at the most. That's a lot of touchdowns to go. Donte Moncrief, Philip Dorsett, Jack Doyle, Kamar Aiken's way.
Yep.
So,
all right, we'll move on to Julian Edelman, who I think is a bit of an enigma this season. Last year
In
PPR. Last year, things didn't start well for Julian Edelman. Finished very strong, but there's been some changes. They've brought in Brandon Cooks, the emergence of Malcolm Mitchell, Chris Hogan's still around, the addition of 10,000 running backs. I mean, there's a lot of different things happening for New England. How do you think that drafters are feeling about Julian Edelman, the stalwart of PPR? Where are people taking him in mocks right now?
I went first last time, Andy.
yeah,
You're up.
Brandon Cooks is driving the draft price down. So is the age of Julian Edelman and the plethora of weapons that Brady has. But, if all of my enigmas in the world could have 90-something receptions, I'd be pretty darn happy. So I'm going to say 501.
Okay, 501.
Yeah, I think he would be still going ahead of Moncrief. So if Moncrief was the 6th, that's pretty. I'll go 5'9".
5'9"?
About his height.
You are a round off because he's still going at 409.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I was maybe I was wishfully thinking I could get him in the 5th round, but 409 is pretty darn close to that, and I love him. I love him at that price.
And I brought up some researched some numbers on him because of what happened last year. It was games with Gronkowski. In PPR, he was averaging 11.2 points, 8 targets, and 50 yards. Then when Gronk got hurt, his numbers went crazy. Almost 18 points a game, 12 targets, and 90 yards. And for those who want to use that as an argument against Julian Edelman, we say, well, Gronkowski is back. You just go back to 2015 and 2014 when Julian Edelman was playing with Rob Gronkowski and being fantastic. In 2015, he was averaging 19.5 points a game with Gronk. In 2014, 16 PPR points a game. So I think it was just a weird matter of circumstances with Tom Brady just coming back from his suspension, some other pieces getting worked into the offense.
He was recovering too.
Yes, and that's a good point.
He was
forgot
recovering
about
from the
his
foot
foot
injury.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, Julian
Who's the
Edelman,
number one?
Who's the number one receiver?
Who's the number one receiver in New England?
It's Edelman.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Into the 4th round.
Yeah,
and he's going to be a good value. I would be willing to take him there. He's my number 17 PPR wide receiver, and even with Brandon Cooks in tow and all the weapons there, I expect him to get 90 receptions. And so in a PPR, for that to fall, it reminds me a lot of Fitz, who's one of my absolute favorites in the 5th round in a PPR, and Golden Tate. Those guys that just you're not excited, but they're going to get the ball thrown their way, and they've got to who do you want throwing on the ball other than Tom Brady?
What are some names around Edelman?
I was going to say that I'm going to give you
might be hard.
An even bigger list. And just for context, Brandon Cooks, his counterpoint is going at 211. So I mean, there's a big difference in draft price. But here's the 3rd round. I'm going to give you the 3rd round wide receivers. See if you would take Julian Edelman or these guys in a PPR. Doug Baldwin.
I'd take Baldwin.
Keenan Allen.
Give me Edelman.
Allen Robinson.
Give me
Edelman.
Give me Robinson.
Was that a split there?
Yes, that was a split.
Okay.
I would take Edelman.
Alshon Jeffrey.
Edelman.
Jeffrey.
Demarius Thomas.
Demarius.
Okay, so you
just
still,
by it, yeah.
And that's a whole round in front. I just wanted to see the actual temperature check there on.
Yeah,
Jules.
we actually, I was just looking at this. We have basically Edelman and Allen Robinson inverse on our rankings, but I'm with you. I do love Julian Edelman. If you get queasy, if you are averse to the Dramamine, I would take Edelman over Allen Robinson any day of the week because Blake Bortles, Tom Brady, there's a different piece that comes to your soul when one of them's throwing your quarterback or the wide receiver the ball.
We need to be realistic. The Patriots are going to play to win a Super Bowl this year, and their best weapon on offense is not Brandon Cooks, a newcomer coming in. They want to win games, and Tom Brady and Julian Edelman have proven that they have a rapport and a connection and that they can move the ball and score points. People jumping off of Edelman just because there's some other changes, I think they're making a mistake.
I completely agree. I love Edelman this year. And we're going to move on to another wide receiver who I think we like him in this office. We picked him up in our Fantasy Pros Dynasty League. That's Quincy Enunwa, who's a bit of a little waiver wire action guy last year for the New York Jets, wide receiver. Where is Quincy Enunwa going?
He's
Quincy Enunwa's a 14th round. 1401.
Quincy Enigma. I'm going to say he's going in the 10th. I'll go 10.
And Andy's 10th?
I'm going 10-10.
10-10.
Ren 10-10.
10-10, 220.
1401.
1401 is 1407.
Ooh.
Wide receiver 70 off the board, which is absolutely ludicrous to me.
It is maybe ludicrous, and let me tell you why. I'm as with you on Quincy Enunwa as one can be. He's going to be one of our sleepers. But there is a world, and if you saw the reports today, Christian Hackenberg supposedly leading the quarterback competition in New York.
Hackenberg's ahead of Petty?
That is ahead of Petty and ahead of Josh McCown.
Oh, get out of here.
That was the report today. I'm saying there is a world where a quarterback not named Josh McCown and a healthy Eric Decker in New York City causes concern for me about Quincy Enunwa and the volume. So that would be the reason why I would be hesitant. Right now, I really like his potential, but we've all kind of had an opinion thinking maybe Eric Decker's not going to be there. But if Eric Decker is there and he's the one and they have two backfield guys and a limited passing volume team, I just have a hard time. I mean, last year, Jared Goff's number 2 doesn't get you excited.
Right.
So that would be my worry.
Yeah, and I get that. I do. But, I mean, it's not like they didn't have Brandon Marshall last year and bad quarterback play last year when Enunwa was involved. I don't have Enunwa going crazy, but I've got him with 68 receptions this year, which was my wide receiver 41 in PPR. So to get him at wide receiver 70.
Yeah, that's tremendous value.
I mean, I will say this. When I'm in those late rounds – it'll depend on the makeup of my team where I'm going, do I want a home run guy who has some crazy upside potential? I don't know that Enunwa has that. But if I want someone that I think he can start my flex if I need, because I've gone crazy potential earlier, then Enunwa should be able to do that.
If I'm drafting 67 receptions, I'm doing it with a 24-year-old wide receiver. I'm not drafting a 67 reception projection guy that is old. I'm taking the young guy because at least if you're spending a late-round pick on Enunwa, at least you can watch week 1 and 2, and he has the potential to do that. I mean, Jason, you barely projected him over last year, and I think that's a good projection. Last year, 58 for 857 and 4. If he levels up because he's given the one role or high volume or maybe it's a quarterback surprises, at least you can learn that the first 2 weeks. He's not somebody that is only going to get a few catches.
And he's always caught our eye. When we watch, the quick question was about watching film.
Yes.
I think we've got an article written.
Always.
I think it was Kyle Borgognoni who did the Quincy Enunwa.
What's his name again?
Maybe.
Borgognoni.
The Borg.
The Borg.
And the reason he catches your eye is because he is 6'2", 225 and runs a 4.45. I mean, you're talking a guy on Player Profiler who his comp is when you're talking production and athletic model? Josh Gordon.
Yeah.
Woo. So, and then the last thing I wanted to say about Quincy was his splits with Fitzpatrick versus someone else. Now, some of these games are about half Fitzpatrick. If you recall what was happening with the New York Jets, they couldn't
Petty.
They couldn't decide if Fitzpatrick should be the quarterback, should he not, should it be Bryce Petty. But the 14 games where Fitzpatrick played at least a little bit, 11.5 PPR points a game.
I'm going to guess that without him,
there was 2 games where Fitzpatrick was not there, 3.8.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I was going to say, I'm going to guess that he goes completely through the floor. And the reason was because if you remember, when Bryce Petty took over, there was only one man who got the ball, and that was Robbie Anderson. 99% target share volume to Robbie Anderson.
You know what's funny is Jason has made the case that the Jets are doing everything in their power to lose this season.
I think the Jets have made that case as well.
The fact that I just reported Christian Hackenberg is leading the way
See, I'm telling you.
should tell you everything you need to know about that potential. I mean, that is.
But and that fits in for me with Enunwa. Some sweet, stinky garbage time coming up for Quincy Enunwa.
Yeah. Let's find that drop for the first time this year. All right, let's. Are we? Do you want to? Is there? Give me one more name, and then we'll jump into the mailbag.
I'm going to give you one more name, because the hype machine of this man has been quite strong this offseason.
Talking about Brooks?
No, the Brooks hype machine's always at 11. Always at 11. No, because of the additions to this man's team, the general public have begun salivating at the potential of Jameis Winston. You added Deshaun Jackson. You added Chris Godwin. You added O.J. Howard. A lot of very, very special pieces for the offense. Where is Jameis Winston going in mock drafts?
I'm putting him at 802.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I'll go 808.
Oh, the kick drum. That's a music reference for all my music friends out there. Jameis Winston's actually going at 905 as the quarterback 12. I was shocked to see that he was only the 12th quarterback.
Would you believe he's my number 12 quarterback?
I absolutely would.
Jameis Winston is so tantalizing because of the weapons, and yet so frustrating in general to watch perform on the football field because he takes the chances, and they're very exciting and they're very fun. But nobody threw a higher percentage of bad passes last year than Jameis Winston, statistically. He threw the most uncatchable passes in the league from a starting quarterback. He has accuracy issues that having 6'5" Mike Evans has masked. He will have to be efficient with those deep balls to Deshaun Jackson. I don't read much into Howard and Godwin giving him some sort of magical offensive prowess, but he was good enough last year in spurts that when you give him these weapons, 12, I feel so comfortable with 12. It's where he'll stay there the whole offseason.
Yeah, and I'm fine with having him at 12. Deshaun Jackson,
Jason has him a bit higher.
And
yeah, he's my number 10 right now.
While Godwin and O.J. Howard, I agree with you, they maybe don't raise the bar for me a ton this offseason. Deshaun Jackson does. I think that he can make a difference.
He should.
Like that, to me, putting Deshaun Jackson on that team is plus 4 touchdowns minimum for what Winston's potential is. Guys going around the same area as Jameis Winston. These are guys who are actually a bit behind him. So it was the question of a quarterback 12. That's pretty good value. You've waited. Everyone else has taken a quarterback. You've loaded up. But these guys are behind him. 10:09, Matt Stafford. 11:09, Andrew Dalton. And 13:12, the emergency parachute himself, Blake Bortles. So do you feel like you would like to go in on Winston as the quarterback 12, or maybe still wait for someone like Dalton?
No, I would still wait. In fact, I have Matthew Stafford ahead of Jameis Winston in my rankings. So if he's going behind, sounds good to me.
Yeah, unless you're talking about significant keeper league or dynasty, in which case Winston is certainly an attractive dynasty piece, no doubt about it. So, all right, nice ADP price check, Mike. You did a good job with that. It's very. I want to say, you guys have it easy, man. Just sit over here and just fire back insane amounts.
I was gonna say your job is easy and very fun.
All right, well, good. We're gonna jump into the mailbag. I do want to take this.
Well, then you should continue doing my job.
Oh,
it's so easy.
Wait,
he's
I
saying
can do that?
You need to do the mailbag.
Oh, wait
drop.
a minute. No, I'm not doing that. There's no chance. Look, I was in the middle of telling everybody about jointhefoot.com and becoming a part of our fantasy football community. We now have a very rich, brand new community forums over at thefantasyfootballers.com. You click forums. Everybody can participate. But if you are a supporter of this independent podcast at jointhefoot.com, you get access to the exclusive Foot Clan Leagues. This is the time to find a great league with great owners
With
that
active
that are
owners.
active. And look, we have online league and local leagues forming with the Foot Clan Leagues, and these things, they fill up like as fast as you would not believe it.
Like Jason taking down an O. Henry.
Yeah, faster than that. Well, that's not possible. But you got to check it out. Jointhefoot.com. You get a ton of other perks, extra episodes every week. It's our way of saying, look, if you get value out of this show, if you enjoy what we do here, and you believe in returning value for value, come be a part of our community. We pour into the community. We pour into the show. This is what we do 24/7. So if you enjoy, if you're a new listener and you've never heard of Join the Foot, go check it out. Become a part of the Foot Clan. We're going to answer some listener questions right now, and no, it won't be me saying the mailbag drop. We want to keep you as listeners, so we'll give it up to Mike.
Mailbag.
Feel like I need a special, when you play Monopoly, you got the get out of jail free card. Feel like I need one of those where it just transfers it to Brooks if we ever get stuck in that mailbag situation. I'd like to play this card here. All right. If you have a question for the show, head to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. You can click on submit a question and send us your question. We love answering them. You can also leave us a voicemail, 302-464-TFFB. We're going to jump right in on this mailbag to a voicemail question. This one comes in, looks like from California.
Hey, this is RJ from Oceanside, California, and my question is this. How do you suggest a change in rules to your league when you're not the commissioner? Should you put it on your group league page or just tell your commissioner or bring it up at draft? For instance, I want my league to change from our waiver system from a first-come, first-served to a FAB-based system. How would you guys recommend about going back to that since I'm not the commissioner? Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for the question, RJ. Good question.
Here's what you got to do. We have first start getting your league used to the idea of FAB. Make sure that everyone knows what it is, how it works. We have a great article on the website.
Got to plant those seeds
of FAB for beginners. And then I'm going full Washington, D.C. I am turning into a lobbyist, and I'm talking to the commission. I'm talking to everyone. Just, man, have you seen how great? Seen how great this FAB thing is? I mean, man, I sure would be great if a league like ours could switch over to FAB. I mean, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Spitballing.
You're right.
You're putting some bugs in the ear so someone else can bring it up?
You plant, you get your crops ready, and then when the time is right, you pounce like a lion at the watering hole, and you're like, hey, it's a FAB time.
Yeah, and then you pose the
I went
question
Macho
like,
Man for some reason.
Yeah, well done.
And then after you've had all your one-on-one individual conversations with people, teaching
how
them,
you
convincing
feeling
them,
about this FAB?
then you could post and say, hey, I know a lot of us have been talking about this FAB system, so I wanted to bring it to a vote.
Oh, yes.
Because then the people that maybe you haven't had those one-on-ones with, they're going, oh, okay, this is something that other people like.
House of Cards on this. You'll know the votes before the votes come in.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We've got enough votes for this thing to pass. No, that's not a bad idea. And ultimately, I will say this about FAB when people have tried to institute it. Explain it in a simple way to people. Because the one thing that I've seen people shy away from FAB for is because they think it's too complicated. Takes too much work. And I think that's a lack of communicating a good FAB system. A FAB system is about equaling the playing field and adding more fun to your league in terms of a daily bidding. It's fun to check every day.
And we get it. There was resistance in our keeper league to switch to FAB.
Yeah, but now it's fabulous.
Yeah, I had to lobby for this thing for a couple years before we got it changed.
All right, let's grab another question.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Tyler Gunther from Rochester, Minnesota, up in the Great White North. I've got a quick dynasty question for you guys. I have a choice between the 103, which I'm thinking Joe Mixon, or Todd Gurley, the known commodity. I'd love to hear you guys' advice. I've stumped a few dynasty big league people, so I went right to the top and wanted to ask you guys. Thanks for the advice. Great show. Love you guys. Take care.
The gun.
That's our buddy Tyler.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Tyler. To me, that's a tough question.
Now, is
Maybe
he saying he's at the 103 of
Yes.
a startup?
No, this is a rookie pick.
It's a rookie pick, 103. He said it would be Mixon, but he could also have Gurley. And, you called Gurley a known commodity. And what I think Gurley is it's like Todd Gurley is the guy with the trench coat, and you open it up, and some people like what's inside.
Is it watches?
And
Please be watches.
So I would say he's like the unknown commodity.
See, I was gonna go with he's like a candy bar. I don't know why it's all candy today, but then just halfway through,
It's all candy all the time.
halfway
baby.
through, it's like those mystery dum-dums.
Yeah.
It's that right in the middle. There's a mystery flavor, and you don't know what is about to happen. He is to me not a known commodity. He's known from the fact that the big games exist. But
Here's what you know.
But probably it's just statistically what he has done. He has been meh far more than he has been great.
I would take Todd Gurley. That's what I would do. But it comes down to what you believe about Todd Gurley, because you already know that Todd Gurley has the keys to the castle. He has them this year. If you believe he takes advantage of that, like year one, statistically, you're fine. You made the right choice. Mixon does not have that. Mixon doesn't have the keys to the castle. He also has a little bit of baggage. He has some other guys in the backfield. To me, I would just take Gurley. Imagine Gurley, and what you know about him now is just sitting there, fresh start, new head coach, some offensive line fixes. Give me Gurley.
Yeah, I like Mixon. I think he will do very well in the NFL, and I'm not a giant fan of Todd Gurley, but I'm still taking Gurley here because of a lot of what Andy's saying. Everything with Mixon has to be 100% of projection. That he's going to overtake Jeremy Hill, that he is going to get the passing work, and that Gio's not going to be involved, or maybe he's still hurt from the ACL. We have no idea what his role is going to be yet. And with Gurley, not only do you have a clear picture as to what the role is, but I think the offense will necessarily get better, even if they're not good. I don't expect them to be good, but they will get better because they got rid of Jeff Fisher. And in addition to that, you have the fact that he is still very young, and he's done it before. He in his rookie year, he had that big blow up. So for me, it's definitely. I mean, if I'm in a startup draft where rookies are involved, I would pretty much always be taking Gurley ahead of any rookie.
Yeah,
hopeful.
that's a good point.
And I'll say I'm actually taking Mixon in this situation. I'm with you that almost always I will take the known commodity, but to me, Gurley is still unknown, and this is a question of offense for me. It's not so much do you fully believe in Todd Gurley's, do you believe in McVay and what he can do for the Rams, because you know who's sneaky good? The Bengals. Here are Jeremy Hill's touchdowns. 9, 11, 9. He's averaging essentially 10 rushing touchdowns a year. And
Wait, the guy that's there sharing time with Mixon? That
right,
one?
and I understand that this year I feel like Jeremy Hill will still have a role, but Jeremy Hill is not going to be re-signed to the Bengals. Gio Bernard is not long for the Bengals in the way that I am projecting it.
It's just a very big leap today to put my confidence in Mixon, because say what you want about Gurley, you still had 278 carries last year. You still had 43 receptions and 6 touchdowns on a team that we all know is being mismanaged. 10 the year before on limited carries. I get it. I get your desire to bring me down on Todd Gurley. But it's too tough for me to go there.
I think Mixon is the more talented player.
Oh!
What was that?
That was Andy's soul leaving his body.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, I think Mixon is the more talented prospect. That's what I see. But, I'm risk adverse with those first picks. I want to know, people just put too much stock and hope in rookies. If Mixon ends up the better pick, I'm not going to be shocked. I wouldn't be like, man, nobody could have called that. But
hey, Brooks, who would you take, Mixon or Gurley?
I'd stick with Gurley.
All right, that's the right answer. All right,
you
that
guys
is
can
it.
Go down on that ship. Enjoy.
No, I'm gonna get Gurley.
I'm in the rowboat,
and then I'm gonna trade Gurley because his value to most people is much higher than Mixon. So even if you don't like Gurley,
to the guys that like the watches,
get the guy with much more value to the general public and utilize that value, capitalize on it.
How do you?
He's the fake Rolex.
How do you go the guy in the trench coat.
Well, that's not what I was actually visualizing.
Oh,
Maybe it was because of the connection to Trent Richardson.
I was right. That's a stretch.
Oh.
I was more picturing somebody with kind of like a little man bag, and there's some like jewels inside. And you go to some people and they want to barter with you, and you go to another country, they have no interest.
Well,
the range of viewpoints on Todd Gurley is wide.
Yeah. Okay. The range of a man with a bag who has some goods versus a man in a trench
Do you see that clock? Look at the clock.
Goods are hidden.
Look at the clock, Mike.
Yes.
What does that clock say?
The clock says Andy should have stopped the show a little bit.
60 minutes.
We did
We
it.
can't make
We
proper
did it.
metaphors after this point in the show. Plus, I'm not used to hosting. I mean, you took care of things for me. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Footballers. Stay tuned for a special edition of the show.
Oh, I forgot.
The show after the show on YouTube. We're going to talk about how this crazy train got started.
It does not involve men in trench coats.
No, but it may involve.
Or does it?
It may. There's some man buns involved, things like that. So, all right, thanks for listening, subscribing, giving us reviews on iTunes, all that good stuff. We'll talk to you next week. Unless you're part of the live stream in a little while, in which case we'll talk to you soon.
And check out fantasyjocks.com for your trophies. The code is Footballers. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.